If you're joining us online or if you're here at the campus, I'm so glad that you made it this morning. My name's Kevin Size. I'm the campus pastor here at the Westminster campus. And I can see we all survived the early onslaught of winter this week. We're here still, so that's good. And we're here for the last week of the series that we've called Unstuck. And so this series, we've been talking for the last 5 weeks about the 12 steps that are typically used in AA or recovery groups. And what we've believed is that the 12 steps can actually be a game plan for life change for all of us. And actually, the premise of this series is really simple. We've said that if we were really honest, that all of us are in recovery in some area or aspect of our lives, that all of us are growing, all of us have a struggle in our lives, and that all of us are in recovery. And guess what? This is crazy. Over the last 5 weeks, we've already been through the first 11 steps of the process. If you've missed any of those 11 steps, I encourage you to go online and check them out, because there is kind of a sequence to this. But here we are, and today we're going to talk about the 12th step. That's actually the message title, is the 12th step. And if you've been on this journey and you've gotten up to this point in your recovery or in your transformation in your life, the 12th step is a chance for all of us to give it away, right? And so that's what we're going to talk about today. The 12th step is about helping stuck people get unstuck. And now, there's all kinds of stuck people in your life. Maybe you don't even realize it or notice it or think about it that much, but all of us have stuck people around us. Sometimes we don't think about or realize how desperate their situations are, even as we're walking through our lives. I want to give you a picture, though, of what it actually can feel like at times. I've told you about my son, Declan. He's 5 years old. When he was about 2, he had gotten a toy, and it was a tube ball shooting toy thing, and he loved this thing, used to play with it all the time. One Saturday, I happened to be performing a wedding that afternoon, and I was all suited up, ready to go out to perform the wedding. Laura and I, my wife and I, were hanging out in the other room, and we kind of heard from the other room as Declan was playing, "Stuck, stuck, stuck." And I thought, that's kind of weird. Why is he just yelling "stuck" over and over again? And then again, "Stuck, stuck, stuck." And eventually, Julia, my older daughter, she ran over and she said, Mom and Dad, Declan's actually stuck. He needs your help." And so we ran over and we saw Declan with his hand like this. He had tried to get a ball at the bottom of the tube, and his arm just happened to be the exact right size that he went down the tube to get the ball, and it was like a Chinese finger trap. His arm was stuck. And I thought, okay, no big deal. You know, Laura and I, we come over there and we start trying to help him out, and we think this is going to be easy. Just pull it out. It's going to be, wait a second. I just pull a little bit harder, and his arm is not moving at all. His arm is really, really stuck in there. And at first, he was pretty calm about this, but then he starts kind of realizing, like, maybe this tube is permanently stuck on my arm. I don't know about this. And he starts getting a little bit upset, and I start getting a little bit upset because I'm worried about him. And so here I go. I pull my son up, and we go into the shower. I turn on the shower. I get the soap out. I get the water on there, and I start to move the tube around, and eventually I'm able to pull it out and get him unstuck. And there I was in the shower, in my suits, trying to get ready to go to a wedding, right? And but it didn't matter. I mean, that didn't matter to me. Why? Because what mattered is that my son was unstuck, right? That's all that mattered to me in that moment. Now, we all walk through life, and there's people that are stuck around us. There's spiritually stuck people. There's relationally stuck people. But few of us go through life with a sense of urgency to help those stuck people get unstuck. Few of us have the kind of urgency I had as a dad to help my son, Declan, get unstuck. But think about this. Jesus, he walked through life with his passion, with his heart. He walked through life with an urgency to help stuck people get unstuck. And that's what we're going to find in Mark 5. That's where we're going. If you have your Bibles, I encourage you to turn there, Mark chapter 5. And the guy that we're going to look at in this story is stuck on a whole different level. It's really, really bad. We're going to look at really a guy that's the definition of hopelessness and helplessness right here. And as we look at this account, I want us to see 3 things as we read this story together. The first one is our need. The second one is his power, or Jesus' power. And the third one that I want to look at is your story. So that's where we're going this morning. Our need, his power, and your story. So let's look at the first one, which is our need. Our need. Now, here's the backstory to this account that we're going to read in just a second. Jesus has been busy up to this point. He's been ministering. There's been crowds that have been coming to hear him teach. But then Jesus kind of does this thing where he pauses and he decides that he's going to get on a boat and he's going to go across the sea to a completely different area. It's kind of interesting. And as they go across the sea, you can probably remember this. Many of you have heard this story. There's this storm that engulfs their boats. And actually, as Jesus is sleeping, the disciples think, oh my goodness, we're going to die. And there's waves crashing. And Jesus comes up out and he speaks to the wind and the waves. And the storm is calmed right in that moment. So you can imagine it was a dramatic evening. They were probably a little bit tired. They didn't sleep very well. They finally get to the other side of the sea after this crazy adventure. And that's where we are in Mark 5, starting in verse 1. And what we find here is one of the most dramatic encounters in all of the Gospels. And so let's read along, starting in verse 1. They went across the lake to the region of the Gerasenes. When Jesus got out of the boat, a man with an impure spirit came from the tombs to meet him. This man lived in the tombs, and no one could bind him anymore, not even with a chain. For he had been chained hand and foot, but he tore the chains apart and he broke the irons on his feet. No one was strong enough to subdue him. Night and day among the tombs and in the hills, he would cry out and cut himself with stones. Can I be real here for a second? That's bizarre, right? I mean, that is weird. We're talking about Crazytown here. This guy, they get off the boat, they have this crazy night, they're probably like just excited to be on dry ground, and this is what happens. This guy comes up, they're confronted with this guy. Other accounts of the story say that he was naked. It talks about him wailing. He's completely out of his mind. This guy lives in a graveyard. He has no friends. He's completely alone. Like, think about what this scene would be like. I mean, imagine if you were walking through Westminster, just taking a little family walk or whatever, and you walk by one of the graveyards in town, and you just see this guy, naked, running around, cutting himself with stones, wailing. I mean, you'd be calling the police, right? I mean, it's that kind of crazy at this point. But it gets even darker than that. People have tried to stop him from cutting himself. They've been chaining him up as he's tried to cut himself with stones, but he has this weird dark power where he's able actually to break the stones and the shackles and the chains that are trying to bind him. And can I say this for a second? That I think oftentimes we think that self-harm, that depression is only a modern thing, but look at this man, right? I mean, he's so dark, he's so depressed, he's so hopeless that people have really written this guy off. They've tried to seclude him to the tombs to get him out of town. In fact, this guy is so off his rocker, it would be easy for us to say, you know what, I'm not perfect, I make some mistakes, I certainly don't have everything all together, but I'm not like this guy. I mean, this guy's on another level crazy. I mean, I'm not demon-possessed, I'm not cutting myself, I'm not hanging out in graveyards, I'm not running around wailing and naked. And we just kind of look at this guy and we completely disassociate ourselves from this story. But before you write yourself out of this story, just think about this for a second. Let me ask you. It says here that this man was living in a tomb, right? Well, do you ever go to dead places in your life? Like, think about this. For the last 5 weeks, we've talked about folks that have struggled with alcohol addiction. That was their dead place. That was their tomb. I imagine there's some people in this room that your tomb is pornography. There's people in this room that your tomb might be perfectionism. I don't know what it is for you, but all of us go to places in our lives where we know it doesn't bring life, but we go there anyway. And then it says this, it says they tried to chain him because he had no control of himself. He would continue to cut himself. Are you saying that there's nowhere in your life that you're out of control? There's nowhere in your life where you know that what you're going to do is going to harm you, but you do it anyway. All of us do that, right? It says here that this guy is alone. Do you ever isolate yourself? Or you ever feel alone? It says this guy has a past that he can never live down. That's how he feels. Have you ever felt like that in your life? And so, let me just say this. Do I need to keep going? All of us have some aspect. We can all sit here, sipping, drinking our coffee here on a Sunday morning in this room and pretend that this guy doesn't represent us. But let's get real for a second. Let's get really real for a second. I believe that the Bible is a mirror to all of our lives. And as we read it, we see our own lives and our own story in it. And I wish that as I looked at this guy, that I didn't see myself. But the truth is I do. And maybe you do too. That right there is a picture of our need. And that leads us to the second point that I want to look at, which is his power Jesus' power. And that's what we see in verse 6 as we continue the story. Jesus steps into this desperate scene, and this is what happens. When the demon-possessed man saw Jesus from a distance, he ran and he fell on his knees in front of him. He shouted at the top of his voice, "What do you want with me, Jesus, Son of the Most High God? In God's name, don't torture me." For Jesus had said to him, "Come out of this man, you impure spirit." Then Jesus asked him, "What's your name?" "My name is Legion," he replied, "for we are many." And he begged Jesus again and again not to send him out of the area. A large herd of pigs was feeding in the nearby hillside, and the demons begged Jesus, "Send us amongst the pigs, allow us to go into them." And he gave them permission. And the impure spirits came out and went into the pigs. The herd, about 2,000 in number, rushed down the steep bank into a lake, and they were drowned. Those tending the pigs ran off and reported this in the town and the countryside. And the people went out to see what had happened. When they came to Jesus, they saw the man who had been possessed by the legion of demons sitting there and dressed in his right mind. And they were afraid. So this is the scene here. Jesus gets off the boat, and this guy immediately kind of confronts him, and he says this to him, "What do you want with me, Jesus, Son of the Most High God?" And you can kind of sense there's this tension here, right? Yes, this man is on his knees, but there's something else at play. There's almost like the demons in this man don't want to give up this territory that easily. In fact, there's only two people having this encounter, this confrontation, but there's an epic battle that's happening under the surface if you read it. He says, "My name is Legion, for we are many." Now, if you read what a legion is, at the time it was a Roman battalion of soldiers numbering 6,000, right? So we've got 6,000 demons here. So you can just imagine this showdown. Jesus on the one side, right? And this epic force of darkness, 6,000 demons on the other side. And then you hear him say, "My name is Legion, for we are many." And the disciples probably are watching this go down. They're just getting off the boat and they're like, "Jesus, we're gonna hang back in the boat if that's okay. You can hang out with the Legion creepy demon man over here. Like, is it cool if we just hang in the boat?" Like, this is crazy encounter that's happening in this moment. And so you can imagine those 6,000 soldiers, these demons, this dark force, confronting Jesus as he comes up on this beachhead because they don't want to give up this territory. But listen, what we find here is that Jesus is strong enough to deliver you from anything. Anything, right? He can deliver this man. He can deliver you. He can deliver you from anything at any time. In fact, even in this very moment right now, if you have something in your life where you're feeling stuck, Jesus, even in this moment, can help you get unstuck. Do you believe that? Like, do you believe that Jesus can break whatever chain you're in, whatever addiction you're in, whatever hopeless situation you're in, whatever hopeless situation your friend or your relative or your spouse or your son or daughter is in? Every person had written this man off, everyone except for Jesus. It just so happens that Jesus is the only one that matters. Everyone had tried to help this guy, nothing had worked. They tried to give him good advice. They tried to tell him to work harder. Goodness, they tried to chain this guy up to try to help him. But listen, it wasn't until he fell at the feet of Jesus that his life was transformed. And here in this moment, Jesus declares his authority over every dark force and difficulty in our lives, and 6,000 demons vacate the premises of this man's psychology and personality, right? Think about this. Jesus flexes his spiritual muscles here, and he frees this man, and he sends these 6,000 demons into pigs. Like, can I just say that the Bible is more bizarre than we give it credit for sometimes? I actually love that. This is a crazy picture. He sends them into pigs. Why is Jesus hating on the pigs, right? Come on now. 2,000 pigs, Jesus? Why is this? This was a huge deal, by the way. If you do the math today, a pig's worth about $250. That's $500,000 in today's money. If you were to even look at it, they were worth even more at that time. We're talking about millions of dollars worth of pigs for this town. This was not a small loss. And I'm going to go out on a limb and say that Geico probably was not insuring these pigs, right? And so this was a major industry, and this was a major loss. But think about this. Think about what this meant for this man. In this moment, this man had this dramatic picture of his value and his worth. That for the rest of his life, as he thought back on this encounter, as he remembered the moment that Jesus freed him, that he had new life, he had a picture of his own value and his worth in that moment. It's almost as if Jesus was looking at this guy and saying, listen, Put the rock down. Put the stone down. Don't you see the value that you have? I would send $1 million into the lake in a half a heartbeat. That's how valuable you are to me. Jesus will stop at nothing to show you your value and your worth to him. Nothing. That was true for him, and that's true for you. And so we see in this moment, this domino effect. As this happens, the story continues and things happen, and they kind of continue to happen for a long time after this moment. And that leads us to the third point that I want to look at together this morning, which is your story. This guy has quite the story, right? And that's what we're going to see. And you can imagine the people, the guys that were taking care of the pigs. This was not a normal Tuesday in the Gerasenes, right? And so they ran off. They don't know what to do. They tell the town. And this is what we see as the story continues in verse 16. Those who had seen it told the people what had happened to the demon-possessed man and told them about the pigs as well. When the people began to plead with Jesus to leave their region. And as Jesus was getting into the boat, the man who had been demon-possessed begged to go with him. But Jesus did not let him. He said, "Go home to your own people and tell them how much the Lord has done for you and how he's had mercy on you." And so the man went away and began to tell the Decapolis how much Jesus had done for him, and all the people were amazed. So basically what happens at this point is like the whole town shows up, right? And they're trying to find out what's going on here. They're hearing about this commotion. And as they roll up, there he is sitting there in his right mind, in clothes, the town lunatic. Like, think about this from their perspective. This guy had been terrorizing their neighborhood for who knows how long. Whenever he would be walking around, parents would tell the kids, like, "Get inside, kids, the weirdo's coming," right? You know? And here he is, he's perfectly fine. They're like, what is going on here? And so they had the natural reaction, right? If Jesus helps someone, they're going to say, "Oh, Jesus, thank you so much for helping our neighbor and our friend. We so appreciate it." Is that what happened? No. They said, "Actually, we'd rather have the pigs. Can we get the pigs back?" Like, that's their reaction to this moment. And can I say this? So I think people want a safe Jesus. I think people want a comfy Jesus. I think people want a Jesus that you can put in a box. People want a Jesus fish kind of Jesus, right? But that's not the Jesus that I know. This is the real Jesus right here. He's a chain breaker. He's a life shaker. He brings radical love and transformation wherever he goes. And when you come to Jesus and you come to his feet, get ready. Something is going to happen. In fact, some of you, I think, have had this experience where you've experienced life change, transformation in your life, and you're maybe even surprised that people aren't excited about it. They don't know what to do with it. Maybe even they're critical of it. If that's you in this place right now, I want to say that you've got good company here. That's what this man was dealing with. In fact, it was so bad that he wanted to leave. They tell Jesus to leave, and this guy's like, I want to go with Jesus, right? And so Jesus had only been, think about this, he'd only been here for a short period of time, gets off the boat, this whole thing happens, and then they say, "Jesus, you need to leave." And so this man so Jesus goes, and this man starts to follow after Jesus. You can almost think this guy's like, "Oh, this is good. I'm on the Jesus team now. This is great. This is my crew. I'm excited about this. I've got clothes on. My life is looking good right now." And, he's walking up. He's excited about this. He's thinking, my life is different. This is good. I can't wait. I'm getting with Jesus now. And he's about to get onto the boat like this. And Jesus says, "Stop. Go home." And this guy's like, whoa, Jesus, no, Jesus, you can't make me go back with them, with the pigs. They're mad about the pigs, and they know me about, they think I'm just the naked guy running around. Don't make me go back there, Jesus. I'm cool, I promise. I'm done with the rock cutting, chain breaking thing. I got clothes on now. I could be with your crew now, right, Jesus? And Jesus says, "No, go home." This guy is crushed in this moment, I'm sure. Why would Jesus do this? It's almost mean, actually. Listen, because Jesus knows that this man has a much, much bigger purpose. He looks at this man right in his eyes and he says, "Go home and tell your own people about how much the Lord has done for you." It's like Jesus is saying, you, my friend, have a story. Go and tell your story. Let me ask you, when was the last time you told someone your story? When was the last time you told someone what the Lord has done for you? When was the last time you told someone how Jesus has showed mercy on you? When was the last time for you? Because I think the call that's on this man is a call on all of our lives. Jesus is saying to all of us, go home. Go home, go back to your neighborhoods, go back to your workplace, to your school, and tell them about what I have done for you. In fact, I would say this, that every person here in this room right now actually has someone that's waiting for you to invite them, to tell them about Jesus. And as we're getting close to Christmas, I mean, this is the perfect moment. There's someone in your life waiting for you to invite them to come and be a part of one of our Christmas services. And I promise, listen, we make this way more complicated than we need to make it. Do you want a lesson in sharing your faith? Like, this guy didn't get evangelism training. He didn't have to go to school and get a degree. He didn't know theology, right? All you have to do is tell your story. This is what happened to me. I can't even really explain it. This was my life. I met this guy named Jesus, and now this is what happens in my life. That's it. In fact, can I say this, that you doing that is way more powerful than some pastor on stage telling them about Jesus. People are less and less interested in what some professional on a stage has to say about Jesus. They want to hear about your life. They want to hear about what Jesus is doing in your life. They want to hear your story. And as you do this, as you tell your story, people are going to lean in. They're going to say, oh, wait a second. If they were stuck and they got unstuck, then maybe, just maybe, Jesus can help me get unstuck. If they were desperate and confused, then maybe, just maybe, Jesus can help me move through my own confusion or my dark situation. And Jesus can change me. Because don't miss this. If Jesus can change this guy, he can change anyone. I don't know who it is you're thinking about in your life. Maybe you've written them off. Maybe you think there's no hope. This guy is worse than that person, right? And think about this. Jesus took this demon-possessed, hopeless, helpless man, and he sent him off, and he became the first missionary to the Gentiles. This guy went from maniac to missionary. I mean, that was the transformation that we're talking about here. And he went out into the Decapolis. That was this 10-city region in this area. And Jesus says, go out into these 10 cities. This is crazy. Think about this. This one man is Jesus' whole strategy to reach this area. This is it. One crazy guy that was living in a graveyard, living with dead people, now he's going and helping people find life in Jesus, right? And so, in fact, as we read about this, we find out that this person probably went on to tell thousands of people about Jesus, and there's actually evidence that there's thousands of people that came to faith because of this one man. And I wonder how it went. Like, I wonder how, as he walked into these towns, how that actually happened. Because you have to imagine he would walk into the town and someone would do a double take. They'd be like, are you like the guy in the graveyard with the naked and is that you, man? And you know, I wonder if what would happen is he would walk up to them and he would simply roll up his sleeves and he would show them the scars on his arm. And he would say, it's me. But I met Jesus and I'm completely different. And I wonder if as he did that, this moment of vulnerability and transparency, through that moment, the power of Jesus was spread throughout this entire region. And again, thousands of people came to Christ in that moment. I don't know what you've gone through. I don't know what's brought you here to this place, but I know this. There's a story in your scars. There's a story in your scars. Everyone in this room has a story. And if you, like this man, are willing to share it, God is going to do amazing things through you. Like, who better to help someone that's going through a divorce than someone that's been through divorce? Who better to help someone that's going through addiction than someone that's been through addiction? Who better to help someone that's going through a miscarriage than someone who has been through a miscarriage? Who better to help someone with a job loss or an eating disorder or bankruptcy or the loss of a loved one or depression or anxiety than someone who has been through those things? There's a story in your scars. So don't hide them. Don't hide them. Roll up your sleeves and tell someone about what Jesus has done for you. Because Jesus is asking you to go home. Tell someone. And that person that you're going to tell is valuable. In fact, Jesus would be willing to leave the 99 for that one person. That was true of this man that we just read about. Come on, think about this. Jesus stops what he's doing. He goes across this entire sea. He has this storm engulf him. They almost die in the process. For what? For this one demon-possessed man. Jesus risked exhaustion and shipwreck, his reputation for the life of one person. He plunged himself into this messy, insurmountable, unredeemable situation, and he spoke hope and truth and love and grace over this man, and everything changed because of that. Isn't that what he does for us, right? Nothing's too broken. Nothing is too far gone. Nothing is too hopeless for Jesus to redeem. In fact, I would say that Jesus would go through much more than a storm and sea for each one of us. That's what he did on the cross. In fact, on the cross, Jesus and this man swap places. Because as we find this demon-possessed man is naked, Jesus on the cross, he was naked. We find this man cut and bruised, and Jesus on the cross was cut and bruised. We find this man wailing out in pain, and Jesus on the cross wails out. And we find this man in a tomb, and Jesus is placed in a tomb. That is the gospel, that Jesus takes our place. And he does it for this man, and he's willing to do it for everyone here in this place as well. That's why nothing's bigger than your story. Because your story is part of the greatest story ever told. Your story isn't about you. Our story, just like this guy's story, is about Jesus. And the story of Jesus is bigger than these four walls. It's a truth that's exploding with so much joy and grace and hope that it can't be contained here in this place. And so go and tell someone about what Jesus has done for you. Let me pray. Lord God, you blow us away. Every one of us, you came across the storm and the sea, and even more than that, you went to the cross for every one of us, Lord. That you loved us that much. You gave us a picture of what that love looked like. And because of that, Lord, that our story is part of the greatest story ever told, and so we have the privilege of going out and sharing that story with the stuck people around us. Maybe we don't even have a class to know how to do that. We don't know all the theology behind it. We don't know every Bible passage about it, but we know that you've changed our lives, and we're willing to go out and tell one person about that. And so, Lord Jesus, I just pray that you would give us the courage, the strength to do exactly that. In Jesus' name, in Jesus' name.